time, Senator Simpson, but I think the people are speaking. The people have spoken. The people have said, get started. We're waiting just a minute because this is a new venue that we haven't used before, and some people are wandering the world like lost sheep. I think there's of that. So, but I believe we'll just get going. And then they're not lost sheep, that's not the right way to phrase them. But they will be arriving, and then they'll be happy to join an event. This is a very odd way to be started. I beg your pardon, I can see more people coming in, so I'm sort of pulling up. Hi, I'm Patty Wilmer. I'm so delighted that you're here with me tonight. We have the world's most excellent guests, and we have 4 of them, which you could probably count for yourself. So you saw that. I'm not really a quantifier myself. I'm in the humanities, but I am able to say that there are 4 people here with me. Before we get those people into our conversation, I would like to have all of you join in thanking Al and Carol Ann Olson, who sponsored the Stegner Award. We also have a humor initiative at the, I'm just making, okay, here, so we also have a humor initiative at the Stegner American West, and I'm happy to say that, well, there's just absolutely no way you could have Alan Simpson and his kinfolk here and not have that be part of the humor initiative. I think we would lose our, we don't really have a license at the Stegner American West, but we would lose our license if we did not have the humor initiative participate in this. So we're very happy that Jane and Bill Reynolds, who sponsored the humor initiative, are here with us tonight. And it occurs to me that I don't really recall explaining the thing I will speak of next to our guests, but I shall now explain it. The Humor Initiative recognizes people with notable senses of humor who make the world work, humor the WD-40 tension conflict. So we've had Bob Mankoff, the cartoon editor of The New Yorker. We've had very distinguished predecessors, and for reasons that really make sense, and you just have to trust me on this, that it really makes sense. We call our visitors in the Humor Initiative, we recognize them as fools for a day. Well, it's very possible that my guests tonight don't know my incredibly distinguished career. I was the official fool at Yale University. I was the official fool at Harvard University. I am the official fool here. Nobody's got a resume like mine. No one wants a resume like mine. That's also, we should say that. But the Shakespeare, you've been speaking quite a bit about Shakespeare. The character who's the fool who sticks by the king when everybody else wants to get out there. So a fool can say whatever the fool needs to say, and you can't chop their head off. You have to just be respectful.
I do that all the time.
I can't say that's why I thought you would be fine with this. And so we will be recognizing you in the Humor Initiative as well, and we have the ceremonial Humor Initiative pickle. Your names are now enshrined on. So, this is one classy operation. I'm just going to tell you, we just pull out the pickle in a way that no other organization we've ever heard of will do that for you. So, I would also like to thank my teammates at the Stegner American West, Kurt, Honey, Ronnie, Nikolai, Chris, Alfonso, Nikolai, and Brooke. We actually have managed to have 2 young people whose name is Nikolai working with us. That's how magic our organization is. So in case you think I repeated the name, there's actually 2 people with that name. And Ariella, so I forgot Ariella. And so we have a very good team, and they just pull these things off. So, the format will be that I will interview our folks for a spell. We will then get to the presentation of the award. Our custom is usually to have people affiliated with the Stegner American West, and that certainly is board members, students, faculty affiliates, visiting fellows come up and join us. I guess we would have you stand up on either side of this when we get to that part. And then an extremely poignant, you might almost say tear-jerking, tribute to the recipients is read by me.
Really something so far.
No, it isn't. In fact, feel free to use your microphone. I'm getting good side comments. So your microphone is on?
Yes, I have it here.
Okay. Would you like to tell people how excited you are by this format?
No, I'm sitting right next to you, but I can't hear. No, the hearing aid is but nevertheless, I'm watching your lips very carefully. That's why I'm riveted to what you're saying. Yeah, something about fools, and then you try to make that look like a good thing, but Peter and I know, and Lynn and Ann, we know that that's just, you're just making fun of us.
That has never been done before.
Oh, yes, yes, because I'm 86, and I've effectively achieved life's ultimate goal, and effectively pissed off everyone in my life.
I'm not far behind you. So that is our format, and I shall now say the obvious, that one person on this stage has spent significantly more time in the public eye than the others on the stage. But all four of the folks joining me are important Western figures. All four are collectively and individually recipients of tonight's Stegner Award. This is the first time we've done a family, and it wouldn't have been right to do it any other way. I have been fortunate to know this family, and I think I'll make the same reference I made a couple of times. When you spend time with the Simpson family, you begin to yearn for adoption papers so that you might become officially part of that family. They are very welcoming, very gracious, and they think that I'm making an idle joke with these references to adoption papers. And I am. But that could change over time. So the premise is that we must understand this whole group together as a family, very dynamic, very robust family. And we have, I believe, other family members. We have a couple, we have several. We have Wallace Simpson. So could the other Simpson relatives in the room
stand up? But not hard.
All the neighbors from Germany and Wyoming.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my.
Thank you. Thank you. So my adoption papers are going to have more signature blanks, I think, as we go. As more people get pulled into that. So we will get a distorted view of this noted public figure's life and career if we don't have this larger group here, and they are remarkable people in their own right. So we have Lynne Simpson, who is an actress and a person working in senior centers and doing all sorts of important civic activities. And she made us all laugh merrily today when she said to a student group that she didn't really have a sense of humor or couldn't tell a joke. And we laughed merrily because we knew that not to be true. We knew that to be an ironic and amusing remark. And she's, in fact, a very merry person. That's the theme running through the group. And then we have Ann Simpson, and she has been active in many civic causes and a very important real estate agent in various locales, and also a wise and forthright commentator on public affairs and on the public activities of perhaps one particular person on the piano. And then we have Pete Simpson, who is my kin professionally. He has a degree, a PhD, and he wrote a very fine book in history. It's a history of Harney County, Oregon, called The Community of Cattlemen, and it's a very good book, and I have appreciated that book for many years. Harney County, you may recognize that name. He wrote about the county where the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge is. So when the Bundys had led their armed takeover, some time passed after the armed takeover ended, and I was invited to speak in Harney County, which was an amazing adventure. And having Pete's book to guide me before I went on that trip was the kindest act of a fellow historian, to give you my point of orientation. So he was at the University of Wyoming for years and taught classes. He taught a class that permitted, invited, and empowered students to consider the problems of Wyoming and to frame acts of legislation and then present those through his contacts to the legislators. Several of those bills were passed.
The one that wasn't passed was the open container law. Aside from that, a tobacco tax was passed, which was good. So, a couple of them, one down, one up, that's politics for you.
And then the public figure, Alan Simpson, who was a 3-term senator from Wyoming, who was in the state legislature while before that, and who, I say this all the time, and I don't know why I wouldn't just say it now, who is the funniest person on the planet. And there are competitors, and they are pathetic. I mean, they try, they're not pathetic, they do a good job, but this person really does just, the atmosphere just crackles and laughter. That sets you up for a very high expectation. Yeah,
Thank you for
You're
doing
welcome.
that.
So,
Say something funny, Al, yeah.
yeah. Well, you just did, that's it, that's the point. So that, we're now going to go directly at why we have all these folks up here, because there are a number of things that we want to learn about them as Westerners. The Stegner Award is to people, to Westerners who have represented the culture, the value, the understandings, the meanings of the West in their lives and careers, and all four of these people have done that. So we will have one unit of our enterprises to learn what we would not have had the chance to learn about those three if we had not had them join Senator Simpson on stage. And we also figured that we will have a chance to learn things about Al Simpson that we might not have learned if we didn't have these folks on stage, if that's all right with you. Okay, good, we have your permission for that, that's really good. So we would like to know from these folks about their own lives, but we would also like to know what it is like to be in proximity to this person, who I believe said that he has pissed everyone off in life. So that must be quite a ride to be in his company. And your role, are you just along for the ride? I doubt it. Are you sometimes steering? That's always interesting. I think he said earlier at lunch today that he is always in trouble. So, what an adventure for the rest of you to have that going on. So, I'm going to start off on a topic that seems very difficult to have a group of people who could be more qualified to speak on with me on this subject and to speak with you. What happened to bipartisan collaboration? This fellow had friends across the aisle, doesn't begin to get at it, but Joe Biden, Teddy Kennedy, long list of people, and he also certainly had people on his side of the aisle who were very close friends. The word friendship is so key to this whole group up here. So could you, I think we'll start with you, to have you speak about bipartisan collaboration as you lived it. And then if you choose to talk about what has become of it, well, why not? So.
Well, first, thank you very much. This is not my first time to be with the Center of the West. It's a wonderful thing, and you have this extraordinary person in the stewardship of it, and people like you who support it. You have a woman of warmth and wit and wisdom, and an unknown quantity today in the political world called humor. There is no humor in Washington anymore at all. And if you use it, you're known as a silly ass and totally ineffective. So it's a tough time. But Brother Pete was in the legislature in Wyoming for a while. He did that. Lynne and Ann and all the four of us had a great time together. We respect each other. We share our joys and our families, and it's been a rare treat. So to be here, all of us together, is very special. But bipartisanship is based on trust, and there's no trust in America today, even amid your own party. I mean, if you think that, well, let's pick a couple, that somebody in the party, let's say, does Ted Cruz trust McConnell? Have a drink. Does Durbin trust Schumer? Have another drink. And that's where we are today. It's very sad. When Erskine and I did our work, we did this Simpson Bulls thing. We presented a 67-page report in English that used the phrases like going broke and shared sacrifice, which is unheard of since World War II. And people would say, well, who did that? Who voted for it? Well, there were 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, 1 independent. Well, who were they? Well, Dick Durbin of Illinois. Dick Durbin, that commie from Illinois. Well, Tom Coburn voted for him. Tom Coburn, that Neanderthal Republican from Oklahoma. That's your country right now, ladies and gentlemen, and you know that because you see it. And the difference really is people are disgusted, yes, embarrassed, yes, but most of all, they hate. And our mother taught us that hatred corrodes the container it's carried in. There's plenty of hate in this country, and then they talk about civility. Where did that happen to civility? Let's get the bipartisanship out of it. And so you go to these seminars on civility. I did one with Max Baucus of Montana the other day, Governor Mike Sullivan of Wyoming, a Democrat. And you get going pretty well until you mention Donald Trump. And civility quickly goes down the rat hole. Oh, I didn't know you were talking about that son. Did you ever teach him all sorts of things? So if you're going to go that way, you got to go all the way. You got to get wet all over. You got to like Hillary. You got to like Bernie. You got to like Trump. You got to like Cruz. Well, that's civility. Anyway, bipartisanship went down the tube. In my mind, it came from the House. The House for 40 years was under the control of one party. This isn't about the Democrats. Be the same with the Republicans. So over there, finally, even the slaves get tired of beating the masters, or escaping the masters, and the masters get tired. So nobody could get anything done. Republicans were repudiated. You put in an amendment, the guy takes it, says, I'm going to give it to the chairman. That's his, put his name on it. Well, how about me? I made a press release. Well, go do another. So they left this House and went to the Senate. And the venom came from the House. People who had been beaten and who had been the beaters, and they changed the Senate to that same tenor. Don't believe these guys. Santorum would take on Dole. I mean, you have to see it to believe it, and that's the way it happened in my mind. And so I remember talking with Bumpers one day, laughing. We loved humor and told a terrible story. I'm talking to him, and one of the senators of my party, and I'm out of the Senate, came over and said, what are you doing over there talking with Bumpers? I said, I love the guy. We had a lot of fun together. He said, we don't do that. I don't like seeing you do it. So that's starters, and that's what's going on every day on the floor of the Senate right now, today. Totally ineffective and embarrassing institution.
So I'm going to ask the three of you to weigh in on this, of what you've observed through your own experiences, but also watching Al do the wrong thing and talk to a Democrat in a congenial manner and be scolded for it. So watching that whole thing, and let's go to Anne.
Well, I'm not, is my mic on?
Yes.
And we often have an opportunity to discuss this when Bill Bradley comes with a group of people.
I just hold it really close.
Mentioned the fact that when we were there, we traveled together a lot. And that was really the only way we got to know our colleagues, whatever party they were in. But now, everyone is home raising money because of the cost of campaigns. So they are not traveling because those of us who lived in Washington were often back in our home state campaigning. So we didn't get to know other people then, but we did know them when we ran on trips at Easter or some 10-day trip that we traveled. And it's just the way all of us are. If you move to a new town and your neighbors never come over and say hello, do you ever like them? And when you do get to know your neighbors, it doesn't matter if they park in your driveway occasionally. You don't mind it because you like them. But we had the opportunity to be with these people a great deal, and we became close friends with members of both parties. And that's what I saw made it work.
Peter,
Yeah, first, it's terrific to see a lot of people, many of whom knew what this was going to be about and came anyway. I think that's marvelous. And let me tell you about this guy who is actually my younger brother, though many of you wouldn't believe that. Still, we stayed in the same room, we grew up in the same house, we kibitzed, we fought, we actually fought a couple of good fights, and when we reached 15 and 16, found out we could really hurt each other. And we quit that crap. And have since that time fought in other ways. But the point is that I watched him accommodate in the family, accommodate with others. And I told something last night to a group of good friends, many of who are here from an event, that when just to show you the ability to cross the aisle, our mother, our sainted mother, who Al has quoted, died 3 days after Rose Kennedy died. And we were on a telephone in the living room at Al's house, calling our family members, calling friends, and telling them about our mother's passing. And in the middle of that set of colloquies, the phone rang, and it was Ted Kennedy, who was calling Al to commiserate about the death of our mother. And Al said to Kennedy on the phone as we were all standing around, he said, "Well, Ted, maybe they're up there clearing the way for you and me." And he said, "They'll need a bulldozer." But the accord, they got things done. Ted Kennedy and Al got things done and respected each other. Never criticized, never judged. They trusted each other. When would you hear that? Today. It's an interesting process. Go ahead.
So, Lynne,
Well, there's a musical on Broadway called Hamilton right now. There's a marvelous song called Being in the Room. And I envy my brother-in-law and sister-in-law who had 18 years of being in the room in Washington, right in the mix of all the excitement and important things going on, while Pete and I were sitting in a sagebrush someplace, mopping out the outhouses. But anyway, so our experience is so different, but maybe more like yours. So my comment, Patty, about the partisanship is that as an observer from far away in Wyoming, watching what was happening in Washington, I brought to that my perspective from being a public servant, because I have my degree as an MPA in public administration. And while I was studying that, all we talked about was service. All we talked about was patriotism for our country. All we talked about is using the wherewithal and the decision-making for making good things for the country, not our party. And so when I remember watching Al working across the aisle, I thought these folks are really trying to do something good for all of us, for the country, and bringing their ideas together. And that is what makes me heartsick, because I only see people self-serving and serving their party, and I don't know how much consideration they're giving to people like Pete and I in the sagebrush in Wyoming. And so it's sad for me to even have to talk about what happened to that notion that these people are public servants using our money to do good for all of us. So I think it's a sad thing.
it's my intuition that the audience probably wants to clap for all those. I have a present. This is not the official presentation for the Stegner Award, but these are the coolest bumper stickers from the Western Governors Association, which does still undertake bipartisan collaboration. So these cool bumper stickers, I was with them this weekend, bipartisanship happens.
Well, you held it up, applause.
Applause, well, that's because you pass this to your brother, so two for you.
That's a better bumper sticker than the one my friend put on, which says, "Over 80, what doesn't hurt doesn't work."
The Western Governors don't have that. I want to take a moment, though, to note that, well, I think I'm quoting Senator Simpson, that a few times in life, not very many, but a few times in life, things did not go as they might have because you lost your sense of humor. And you have said you have a wonderful custom of lively language. And every now and then, it's got a kind of lively sharpness to it. Or bluntness, I suppose, would be the other thing. I will just say, I will not refer to anyone in the audience, but there is a person in the audience who was once, I believe, told that you would like to wrap a tiger iron around his neck. And I won't be looking at anybody in the audience there. Might have been all members of the audience, for all I know, I wasn't that in the least. But, so those episodes of sharp and blunt language, where did those come from?
Well, to get you in trouble, there's a fine line between good humor and smartass, and I've crossed it many times. And the worst, if you really want to get to the worst, and it's very topical because I've been called by the national media the last few weeks about what do I remember about the Clarence Thomas hearings and sexual harassment. Well, I'll tell you what I remember very well. I had a wife and a daughter and a mother who one of them had been subjected to 180 degrees more than the professor. And I lost my marbles. Because the questioning went like this. Did he touch you? No. Did he attempt to touch you? No. Did he ever make any advance toward you? No. Well, then why are you here? Which is what Chairman Biden asked her. She said, I want you to be aware of his behavior. What is that? Well, we watch porn movies on Saturday at Yale. Freshman class, all of them, watch porn movies on Saturday mornings at Yale University Law School. And she said, he then wanted to talk to me about those. And what did he say? He wanted to talk about long dong silver and pubic hair and Coke cans. If you think Americans were surprised at that retort, think of the committee. We had never seen a single shred of that in the FBI report. All of her inquiries, all of her statements, everything she had said previously. Terrible stuff. And Biden was the chairman, Democrat, and he did the best he could under tremendous circumstances. The point being that came out of that, first they said 75% of Americans said she was lying. 10 years later, 75% said he was lying. He's on the court, she's teaching at Brandeis. I have talked to her since. And I say, why don't you leave them both alone? But no, you don't. You pick scabs in America, keep digging them up. And that gives a satisfaction apparently to the interrogator. I was doing something about a bill one day, and at the end, and the woman reporter said, did you know today is the 25th anniversary of Chappaquiddick and Ted Kennedy? And I said, no, I didn't. She said, what do you think of that? I said, I think you ought to go home and get some rest, because that thing is with him every day of his life. I mean, if you forget your humanity in this game, get out. I don't agree with Ted Kennedy or his lifestyle. It means nothing to me, nothing I ever followed. But he never broke his word with me, ever. We shook hands, that was it. He either said, I'm for you or against you, or I'm going to fight you, or I'm going to stick with you. But that was the toughest one for me. I got called everything. But the best thing about it, it brought a new awareness of sexual harassment. Now, I don't know what sexual harassment is anymore, but I had an office staffer who did that before the Thomas hearings were ever heard of. A young woman who was in charge of sexual harassment. You know what the kind in the West. Unbutton your fly and put your shirt tail out. I heard somebody chuckle. Well, that's pretty funny for a cowboy. Like all some of us. Not very funny to the woman who laughs. And that's sexual harassment. Garrison Keeler has apparently stroked some woman's back because it itched. And then another one's laying on top of someone doing their number. I mean, where is this? what is this? I don't know what it is, but I don't know what the hell that has to do anything, but I got a lot off my chest.
But the notion of those lapses from humor, they seem to not be your proudest moments of when you did that.
They hurt, and you're embarrassed. If you lose the ability to laugh at yourself, you're really doomed to get up and look in the mirror and say, Simpson, you're full of it, and laugh. And then sometimes go in front of that mirror and say, you really screwed up. You lost a piece of your goodness and your hostility and your disgust and your hatred. That's not good. You can correct that. That's a hand crank job. Don't need any therapy. Just turn the crank to do something different. So you learn that. It's painful. All humor comes from pain. I'll never forget that statement. All humor comes from pain. Danny Kaye taught me that. If anyone with gray hair remembers Danny Kaye, I got to know him, and he said, all humor comes from pain. And if you sort out your own life and you're a good humored person, you'll know what you hid.
Any of you want to comment on this topic?
Well, I remember at that time that Al was a little on the high wire, and he had pretty much lost perspective. And he didn't say it today, but he came home one day, and it was in the midst of all the turmoil. And I said, you know, you have a wonderful reputation, and I hate to see you lose it. And I think you should just shut up.
Did you hear the word? She said, why don't you just shut up?
He said, you have never said that to me before. And I said, I have never needed to. But he heard it. And that has been one of his specialties, is that he, even though it might make him very angry, he does reflect on those things and hears them.
About sexual harassment. I think I'd like to talk about that. I just recently made a speech somewhere. I said, I have a moment of notoriety, and I'd like to tell everyone in the room how very sorry I am, and I apologize forever. When I kissed you, when I greeted you and patted you on the back. Mel, last night I remember putting my arm around you and giving you a little scratch. I go, oh my God, he's going to sue. I'll be hearing about this from everybody. Who else? Alan, Bill. It's just our way in the West, kind of, to be relaxed about how much affection we give to other people. But I apologized in public, and I said, I'm sorry when I patted your knee under the banquet table. It was just because I was liking you. And in the West, I don't know, is this true only in the West? Where we think that affection is needed because we're all having a hard battle. And isn't it nice when you can give someone a really sincere squeeze without worrying about 10 years later they're going to call the cops on you. Anyway, I apologized deeply and told them I was checking into therapy the next day. We all realize we can practice
I'm going to use a wonderful example that about humor and its management. And I happen, actually, Kurt Cougar, our managing director, and I both remember where we were when we heard you and Erskine Bowles talking about the deficit reduction plan that you were just starting, and Michelle, no, it's not Michelle, Michelle Block, I guess, Melissa Block was the interviewer. And apparently no one had told Melissa Block what life is like interviewing Alan Simpson on NPR. So it was so wonderful as a moment, and I loved this, and I believe I called your voicemail and left a fan message for him. So he is talking, so basically she said to him, you and Erskine Bowles are going to have many enemies from your own ranks who will not like what you do on this commission to cut the deficit. And so you said, she said, what are you going to do about the critics and the opposition? you said that there would indeed be critics, and there are, this is a quotation, and there are a lot of bitchers and whiners and snorters out there, and we intend to listen to them all and then crush them. So, and then you instantly said, I didn't mean that. Which,
Well, that's because I was known in high school in Cody as Alibi Al. Now, that never ended.
Alibi Al.
Alibi Al. It's important you blame somebody else. Alibis are creative, and they take energy. And I got a lot of trouble in high school. The teacher said, now get up there to the board and describe, it was some kind of math class, describe pi. And I said, well, she said pi or square, and I said pi or round. And it just struck me from the sent me home. These are things you never forget. Well, they only got off on that, but
but I thought that was wonderful. I laughed and laughed, and I think you told me that some people were outraged by that you got some responses from people saying Alan Simpson said he was going to crush his critics, and their capacity to recognize something very funny was just dead. They couldn't.
I think where I hit a bad segment of society, I said, look, 15% of the people in your church, your community, your family, wherever you are, 15% are screwballs, lightweights, and boobs. But just remember, those people need to be represented in Congress too, if they are.
I hate to interrupt the wave of goodwill and good humor, but I want to just make an additional comment about the bold Simpson proposal, which really said, in the long run, we're all in. We all have to share a sacrifice. We all have to make an accommodation. We are all in this together. And that sense of self-sacrifice, that sense of shared goodwill and shared purpose, I see many gray hairs out there. We can maybe remember the 50s, right after World War II. We can remember defeating Hitlerite Germany, some of us. We can even remember defeating the agony and the appalling difficulties of depression. But all of it, somewhere along the line, was a dictum we all shared. We all have to beat this together. We all are in this together. So to see the Simpson-Bowles proposal go to Congress, which really demanded that sort of thing, and have everybody, and Al will recount this. Some guy comes up to Al and says, I'm so for that. I want to see that happen. We all have to get in there. If you just make an exception of the courthouse in Chugwater, or some other place, some little exception. Well, that's the problem. So did Congress vote on it? Yeah, they did. I think it was 90-1 against, because nobody could quite make that extra sacrifice. I'm even going, now, since Al has said some colorful, even pungent things, I will now quote a pungent thing that he said when he said, got into trouble with the Now Group and others, when he did say a truism. This country is 320 million tits on a milk cow. It was appalling, because one of the Now people said, I think you meant teats.
She had never milked cows.
She never milked
You and I never cows. So we never called them teats.
But that's more than colorful. That's literally true. We all have a share, but it's for ourselves. I've got to get off of this.
Well, I'm just wondering if, because the future is not predictable, that the Simpson-Bowles initiative might be on its way to recognition and support, that there may be enough mounting sense of something's not working here. And there were two guys. One who said was going to crush his opponents, and the other one who was not. Is there a chance that we would get back to that? That actually all the things that are not working well might create a thirst and enthusiasm to consider. But when there's both,
There are 8 senators working on it now, 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, good people, and they're putting it into legislative language. We'll see what happens with that. But it is fascinating, but that quote, I have to tell you, came from, I said that we needed bag balm. I had a can of bag balm in my office. People would come in, they'd give me a big lecture about the deficit, and I'd say kindly, Wade, you realize what you're asking me for is $80 million for the hospitals in Wyoming, and that's part of the deficit. You realize you're asking me to change the tariff there on sheep or whatever it is, and that takes money. And everyone would say, love what you're doing except for that one part. Please don't touch that part. Municipal bond interest, home mortgage interest deduction, parking for employees, employer deduction of employee health care. Give me a break. And if you think they're going to get this tax bill out there easy, let me tell you, the blood hasn't even started to run. Those guys on K Street are going to claw the doors down. So it's a tough thing. And so I said that to help people, I said, we need bag balm. Well, what's that? I said, it's an emollient, salve. What's it for? I said, you rub it on the extremities of the bovine members of the quadrupeds that issue lacteal extract. And then they'd say, that's a smart ass. And then they'd say, well, why is it on your desk? I said, because if America is a milk cow with 320 million tits, we need all the bag balm we can produce.
Moving on. And actually, it's both ways. Did you want to say?
Actually, I want to say, Al did not grow up in the country, and I did, and he called them teats.
It was a well-landed blow.
She was born in Graybull in Bighorn County, Wyoming. We'll talk later.
So I want to go to a zone that you were so forthright in speaking about, and all of these folks probably have some things that we want to say about it. You did not get off to a promising start. And as a teenager, you would not have been the subject of
Much hope.
much hope. Yeah, I was kind of finish that. So could you do a little reminiscing about yourself, or maybe actually, let's not have you do it, let's have Pete do a little reminiscing about your younger brother and his conduct.
Well, I'm going to let Al explain himself on that score, but I will tell you that I drove the getaway car. So there was a chance for Al to redeem himself, but we had, well, let me put it this way. We would come home late at night. We lived in an attic. We actually lived upstairs in the house that didn't accommodate us when we reached 6'5" and 6'6". So our parents, there's a place upstairs with 7-foot beds, for God's sake. And so we could at least grow up lying down if we couldn't stand up. So as kids growing up, occasionally we'd stay out at night. Occasionally we'd have a good time. We would, of course, be conning our parents into thinking we were attending the thespian club at the high school, when in fact we were dragging Maine. And so we would come home at night and shinny up this scaffolding, which was right outside of our room, and get back into bed. And pulled a fast one again, Al, and he'd say, yeah, we have, Pete. And so one Sunday morning, not long after that venture, we were on our way to church, and when we came back from church, Dad had forgotten his keys. And Al said, look, Dad, I can climb down there on the window on the basement. I can get into the basement and get up the stairs, and I can open the door. And Dad, I can remember he had a toothpick in his mouth. And he said, well, why don't you two guys just shinny up that damn scaffold like you did night before last. So we never got by with one like that. I want to add something to it. Somebody once said to both Al and me, he said, you guys, where would you be without all that material from your old man? He was an amazing guy. He was a United States Senator. He was governor of Wyoming. He had a giant personality and a great, great sense of humor. Very earthy humor. What are you boys doing downstairs with your father? Telling stories. Well, they're nice stories, you bet, Mom. And we would hear the earthy side and then learn wise things from our mother. So Al was undisciplined, and I tried my best.
We called our mother the Velvet Hammer. The old man was the humor and the earthiness, but I mean, it was a conflict because Mom would wash her mouth out with soap if you used the word L, and the old man would tell you the worst stories you'd ever heard. So we had to guide ourselves through a labyrinth of appropriateness.
We stopped a little bit short of what you were like as a teenager.
Don't let him off the hook.
That's what I would do.
What are you saying?
You told him about the target practice.
Well, all right. I was on federal probation for shooting mailboxes. And, we were good at it. And there were 62 holes in one Porcel's box, and of course the shells, the spent shells, landed a mile away on his porch. He thought there were buzzards or something, or bees that were whizzing by his head. Spent 22 shells coming by his chair on his poor old farm, and they found out who was out there that day, and 6 of us had to go before the federal court, and they gave us, they said, you will each pay $1,400 a day, and we also shot up some road graders. Road graders have tires that are huge, and they're very attractive. See how many shells you can get into one before it goes down. And they're worth about $400 each. So we were $1,400 each, and you had to earn it, couldn't get it from your parents. And they put us on 2 years of federal probation. And that was lesson number 1 for me. There were others. I didn't talk, didn't learn.
Al got a wonderful award from the Boys and Girls Club in Casper. There were 1,000 people at a breakfast to honor Al for his distinguished service. And I had the honor of introducing him. So I told the audience how proud the family was. Our mother was so proud of him. Our father was so proud. And were his probation officer alive, he'd be proud. Al won every vote in a rally in Jackson, Wyoming one time by looking across the room. He was campaigning for the Senate, and his probation officer had come and was in the back of the room. And Al stopped everything and said, I want to introduce you to my probation officer. He won every vote that night.
He's a great man, and I introduced him to Ann, as she heard me talk about it. J.B. Mosley was his name, and he was just a special guy. You don't forget people like that in your life, and it was a wonderful time. But anyway, I think the worst disappointment I had with Ann, I was going with her, and Peter was playing the guitar in Laramie down in the area near Front Street. There were a lot of little restaurants there and cubicles and so on. And so I couldn't reach Pete because I got in a fight with a cop, and I hit the cop. And then he hit me, and then they took me to the clink. And so I called Ann, and I said, Ann, I need $300 bail. She said, what are you talking? Where are you? I said, I'm in jail. And she said, why? I said, well, it was an unfortunate thing that the club hit me, or that I hit the club, I don't remember. But Anyway, she said, well, I don't have that money, I'm working my way through school, you know that, so just stay there. And that was the message. I thought, I think I got to marry her. This is going to continue unless I find salvage here. So 63 years ago, we're still at it, and we...
However, we were engaged for a year while I watched him closely.
Yeah, that was the troublesome thing. I said, why did we wait 2 or 3 years after I made that gorgeous proposal? She said, I thought you were a drunk. So how's that for a romance?
Anna, do you want to?
I was just thinking about their father and their mother and their wonderful sense of humor and the fact that they love life and they love people as these two men do. And what do you like better than to have someone who wants you to like them? And these fellows are like a couple big St. Bernard dogs. They just come at you as though, give me a pat. And I have been aware of the fact that when they enter a room, people smile.
What a wonderful gift. Well, I was raised in the same town as Pete and Al.
Much younger.
Much younger, yes, that's true. But we were raised in a small town, and we were full of the Dickens. Do you remember the time we could do pranks and tricks and get away with it, and our little town leaders would cover for us or call our parents, or the cops, they would call the cops and say, go scare the heck out of Pete because he was in trouble and we got to teach him a lesson. And there was isn't there something special about a rural western town and being raised where you can be naughty and you can survive it and you have to own up and you have to be accountable somehow. Now that gets very annoying when you're an adult. I mean, I don't want people to know as much about me in Cody as they do now. But when I was small, I just I feel this way about Al, particularly and Pete, because Al, you profoundly said one day that growing up in a small town where you are accountable to your neighbors and you want to make the town proud of you and you want to do well in school ultimately, and you find out who you are when you're under that kind of small town pressures. And you have a moral code, and it's so much fun to rebel against it and not get thrown in jail at the time. So Al, you said that once, and I really loved it because my Uncle Glenn Livingston was his scoutmaster, and was part of the reason these two boys turned out so well, because he knew what they were up to. You couldn't pull a trick on these adults in our town. Anyway, one time Al said, if you don't know who you are by the time you get to Washington, D.C., this is a poor place to find out. And so I'm proud of you boys for turning out the way you did, and for Ann and I sticking with you.
The reference to the Cub Scout leader does seem to require the story of the visit to Heart Mountain and the friendship that came from that. So the story of your Cub Scout leader, who does seem to have been remarkable, because the Cub Scout leader was the one who said, our troop is going to go to the Heart Mountain Japanese American internment camp, and we'll do...
Tell them that, Pete.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like
It was her uncle.
I'd like her uncle, and part of this, thank you for asking, Patty. Because Lynne's uncle was our scoutmaster, was our high school principal, our junior high school principal, and an inspirational man. And one day, in 1943, we're going to a scout meeting down in the basement of the Presbyterian Church. And Glenn Livingston, our scoutmaster, said, now boys, we're going to go to a jamboree at the Heart Mountain Relocation Center, which was then called the Jap Camp. 12,000 people, right, between Powell and Cody, between the two towns, it would be half that population. And he said, and your parents, some of your parents may not like that. So you'll have to ask your parents. And we did. And only 2 parents decided that they wouldn't do it, but he said at the time, when you ask your parents, you tell them they salute the same flag, they wear the same uniform, and they give the same pledge to the flag. So you tell them that. And when I went out there and Al went out there, it was one of the most vivid experiences of our lives. Al made a fast friend there. You know him, Norm Manetta, who was in Hart Mountain, who served as Secretary of Transportation, brought the planes down at 9/11. And I met Luke, and I lost track of him, and that was highly regretful, who was a Japanese kid who had hair on his legs. That really kind of flummoxed me, and was tough as hell, and did a blind man's bluff game, and hit me with the Los Angeles Times, these guys from California, and bloodied my nose, and I thought, this guy is a maniac. And we went outside, played a little football in the cold, and he said, you know, it's so cold out here, my goose pimples have goose pimples. And I thought he was Bob Hope. He was the funniest guy I'd ever heard of. And he took me to his tar paper shack, and they had a little stove with hot chocolate on it. You couldn't cook in those stoves. You had to eat in a mass dining room. And I took hot chocolate, met his grandmother, sitting with tapestries behind her and silk kimonos. You could take that, it was lightweight in that shack. And I learned something from Glenn Livingston and from that experience that lasted me all my life. I now serve as one of the board members for the Hart Mountain, Wyoming Foundation. And when they finally built the museum that houses the memorabilia of that place, I went in to see it before all the crowd came, and one of the pieces was the replication of a tar paper shack, and I started to go into it, and I choked up, and I said, give me a minute. And then to go in and see that gave me a great feeling for this guy, my wife's uncle, and for our experience, and for old Luke, wherever he is now, if he still is, and what it means to us to know what accommodation, tolerance, and a global world really means for us all.
Pete, tell them about how you felt when you left the camp and you looked up and saw the man with the gun.
The word ambiguity was not in my vocabulary at the age of 13, but it got in there after going out with Dad in an old Model T Ford, and he was the attorney, the county attorney, helping them to get a mortuary. And I was looking out the back window of that car, and here was a guy with a Fifth Army patch on, a soldier, saying goodbye to his girlfriend. Underneath the guard tower was a soldier from the same army that had a gun pointed inside. That's ambiguity. That was a shock.
Al, do you want to speak on that?
Well, it was a confusion time because the reality was that this was the third largest city in Wyoming that suddenly started between Powell and Cody in a sagebrush flat. And the only reason it was there was a railroad track. And they put them in the staples at Santa Anita, gathered them up on the basis that this was a military necessity. These were American citizens. The largest, there were some aliens, or some he say. And they brought them to 10 camps, 140,000 of them in Jerome, Arkansas, Manzanar, Tule Lake, the most remote places in America, and built them a bunch of shacks, and they were there till the end of the war. It was a tough time, but sometimes they'd come into town as trustees, and then you'd be sitting at the Green Lantern restaurant, and a sign on the door, "You sons of bitches killed my son in Iwo Jima." Now that'll leave you confused. Meanwhile, the editor of the paper out there was Bill Hasakawa, who later became executive editor of the Denver Post. So confusion at 13, you cannot imagine. And then to go out there and you're thinking there's going to be a bunch of guys that are going to kill us. They got those guns and searchlight. Hell, everybody who was 18 to 30 was in the service of the United States military. And it was, 804 served in the military. Several Medal of Honor winners. Many of them were in the 414 and the 414, 442nd, and then there was an artillery unit. Here's one for you. I'll cut it down to a minute. When they were liberating either Dachau or Auschwitz, the Germans just fled one morning. The truck started, and here's these guys in their pajamas weighing about 80 pounds. Somebody down the road, hiking down the road, is a military unit, and they were Japanese Americans. They were the artillery unit that supported the 442nd. Well, these poor people about head for the ovens had never seen anybody like that either. Asian people in a uniform, they thought, my God, we just had the Germans who was in, and now here comes the United States military. Immediately, once they found out that they were liberating the camp, pulled them back. The orders were immediate, get out of there, and we'll send a Caucasian group to liberate the camp, because who in the God's name would want them to know that the people were saved by Japanese Americans who were behind barbed wire in America? Try that.
So I'm going to,
Tell about his relationship with Norman.
I think that's right. You should, the friendship over the years with Norman Mineta and serving together and
Just a wonderful relationship. We met. I could see he was a pesky man. He was pesky, and there was a bully there, and it was raining. And we built a little moat that led down to his tent. And then the rain came, and it all ran right into his tent. And Norm said I cackled, but I didn't cackle. I was laughing, of course. And I kept track of him. And he became the mayor of San Jose, and I wrote him. Remember the fat kid from Cody? And then we served together in Congress. And he's a Democrat. And then we served on the board of the Smithsonian, regents of the Smithsonian. I keep in close touch with him. He's had a real tough time. He's lost about 40 pounds, got a serious back ailment, but he served George Bush and Bill Clinton as Secretary of Commerce and Secretary of Transportation under two different party presidents. A marvelous man. And when we get together, and his wife Denny, we hug and kiss and break our glasses. But he's the same age, and a lifelong nearly friendship.
Patty, I have a little side story, and it's only important, I think, in the context of the talks about immigration that we're engaged in now nationwide. So, in my true Cody spirit, I volunteered to help open the Japanese camp and be part of the great celebration, and I had all these great ideas. So we sat down, there were 4 Japanese women, American Japanese women, and myself. And I started to hold forth about how we were going to bring in the drummers from Japan. We'll go right to Japan and bring in these Japanese drummers, and we'll bring in a great Buddhist minister, and we'll have a ceremony, and we'll bring in all the geisha girls. And I had the most spectacular idea about how to open the Japanese relocation camp. It had nothing to do with anything which happened in Japan. And as I talked and was so full of myself, I saw these women get more sour and more sour listening to me. They finally quit taking notes. And I noticed that I wasn't invited to the next meeting. And it all occurred to me like a light bulb. When I went to the opening, which I had no part in, because I had been ousted, because these women think of themselves as Americans. And they wanted that celebration to be American. And while they give lip service to the fact they are Japanese and they're proud of being Japanese, that celebration was going to be about being an American. And I loved it because it's wonderful to learn from those humbling experiences and to have a light bulb go on about immigration and how people like these friends of mine from Japan think of themselves as American citizens, period.
So, humor and your parents, and what they taught you about humor and the phrase irreplaceable solvent. So,
She said humor is the universal solvent against the abrasive elements of life. And hatred corrodes the containers carried in. And if you can't forgive a person, it's like letting them live in your head rent-free. You're in the shower, you hate this bastard, he's playing golf, who's the stupid one? Just a thought for the day.
So your mother had a good sense of humor, and your father had a good sense of humor, but his stories were sometimes beyond the boundaries. So united in a sense of humor, but different in what was right to talk about in a sense of humor.
He did not tell his stories to Lynne and me, however. He told them to the boys.
The stories, yes.
The stories, yeah, he didn't tell them to Lynn and Ann, but he told them to us. But Peter can tell you, well, what the hell was your question?
It was about your parents and the sense of humor that you acquired from your parents, and how that seems very characteristically a Simpson sense of humor. But your parents were not identical in their approach to humor.
No. But our mother, when we'd start to tell puns at the table, which we would, Mom always won. Always had the last pun. You couldn't beat her. She was something. But we used to laugh, and of course Peter and I would try to fog some of the shadier stuff across the table, and Mom would smile. I said, would you pass the salt, Peter? And Dad would go, oh, God. And Mom would say, now you pass the salt. You're
She knew what was going on.
Well, I did.
And of course, Dad on the shadier side would tell the stories of boys. He said, they fed me saltpeter in World War I, and it's just beginning to take effect now.
I hope Ann and I are getting your sympathy.
Sure, that she hopes that the audience's sympathy is going to Ann and
They
her.
always hear well.
Now, Peter was in the Navy, and they fired big shots off of carriers, and he flew a propeller-driven thing. I had an 81mm mortar platoon in the Army, and boy, we didn't know what earplugs were, so that's why I'm sitting here watching her lips. But I didn't hear Lynn, but I watched her lips from there. I've seen Ann's lips. Right there. No, where were we? No, but enough of that.
Okay, so
Bring it back.
So I guess I was going to ask a question that is so ridiculous to even contemplate, but what would your lives have been like without the extremely robust sense of humor that you have? Can you imagine what life would have been like if you did not have that?
Well, I not only imagined it, I had it. And I won't go into it because, everybody's had a tough situation. Everybody's had a rough patch. And if you ever meet a person that say, it's like political correctness. You meet a person that says, I've never had a bad thought or a bad feeling or anything nasty about anyone, just go, because, and I'll give you the definition of political correctness, but not now. I won't. But, and I heard Ann groan because she knows that I wouldn't do it. I went through a period in the Army, I hated the Army. I was called out by Al. I could always fake out anybody, fake out teachers, principals were just easy to fake out. Now, you've done a serious thing here, Simpson. Are we ever going to do that again? No, sir. That's all you have to say. Walk out and say, boy, I think he's a changed young man. So, took care of principals. They were easy. Superintendents were a little more tough. But when I got to the Army, I hated it. I'm married, we didn't have any children. Beautiful woman, we've just been married a year or so. And I just sunk into a fast switch depression. Drinking about 3 cases of beer every few days, smoking 3 packs of cigarettes, weighed about 230, and hit the wall. I mean, the black wall. And you'll all hit the wall, or you have hit it, or you will hit it. Hit it young if you can. They took me to the 11th Field Hospital, and I said, I'm sick. Well, what's wrong with you? Well, I'm sick. I'm dizzy, and blood pressure about 3,000 over 1, whatever. And I said, why don't you treat me? And this doc, I wish I could have found him because I didn't like him at all. He said, you know something, Simpson? You're filled with anxiety and your feet sweat. So why don't you go sort crap over there in the hospital? I lay there for 30 days in the fall, thinking of taking the gas pipe. Oh yeah. And Ann would come and say, get up. Let's go to Augsburg. This is the crossroads of the world where I was stationed. I can't do that, you know, and so if you want to deal with the dirtiest 4-letter word in the alphabet, the word is pity. And then attach self-pity to it, and you got a long haul coming for yourself, but that's a hand-crank job, and you do it. You just say, I don't want to be the human toilet bowl. I don't like it. I don't like this feeling. Well, what are you going to do about it? Start. And there's no mystery to it. Some need therapy. I didn't need that. I just needed Ann. She said, your mother is not here, Al. She's 8,000 miles away, and I'm not your mother. And I thought, why did I marry this gargoyle? What was Then I got tight one night and choked up on those black radishes and all that beer, and I'm worshiping at the ceramic throne on my hands and knees. And I said, can't you help me? She said, no. I'm not your mother. Well, I stuck with her, though. Not just society. Those are perilous things. But anyway, the thing that gets you out of there is that you think, who is being stupid here? Why am I the human toilet bowl when I'm not? And then you start feeling good about yourself, and then things begin to take shape. I'm a good guy, except when I'm not. I look in the mirror and I say, you crazy bastard, what did you do today? And then you laugh at yourself and move on. I can only tell you, but beware of self-pity, the most destructive force that I ever confronted. And it was the black sheet. It was the black sheet.
We're getting rid of those 2 women have to quit, which is not desirable in my view. But I just think you have had a few experiences where life, in the midst of a very sad and worrisome situation, took a turn towards the preposterous. So your lung x-rays and the trouble with your lung and the medical dilemma of the dark place in your lung.
It was my heart. It's very dark. No, that was, you know, that's another, you know, you go through all that stuff, and I coughed up some blood on the plane, but a few weeks before that, I was sucking on a slippery elm throat blossom. Did you ever see slippery elm? It's awful slick. And I woke up and I thought, okay. Well, I have aspirated this thing, so they looked in there and they said, you have something on your lung, we're going to have to operate. And I said, no. Well, they went down in the tree there, you know, with all their equipment, came up and said, this has some kind of a vegetable connotation. I said, I know, it's a slippery, soap closet, and you're not gonna operate on me, you gargoyle. So the doc said, go home, have your wife hit you on the back every night, lean over the bed, you'll be fine.
Sitting around I've only been a Simpson for 58 years. So they're a little bit better at it. But what I learned in a Simpson family is that we were always looking for something to celebrate. Always making a special occasion. And so when I took on the job leading low-income elderly people, we just made a staff decision that we were going to laugh every day in our facility. And that everyone that walked in the room was going to get a Simpson hug. Because if you know these boys, you know that you're going to get loved, and it's real. So I'm just saying, Patty, when you ask about where humor, and I have to add affection, because that's these boys as well, and it's real. Of course, they got it from their parents, and we do want to give that to our grandkids and our children. But anyway, that center, without knowing anything other than we're going to laugh and we're going to love around here, like the Simpsons do, grew from 12 people a day to a time when I had 2,000 people going through that center, and they were coming for a laugh, to hear your name, and to have a hug. And that's what I've learned from Al Simpson and Pete Simpson. And I'm glad I'm a Simpson girl for 58 years. It's been nice.
And what I would like to do for our concluding moment here, this seems a little bit grim, but you were asked, I guess by the author of your biography, Shooting from the Lip, you were asked what you would like to be remembered for, and you said, put it on my gravestone, you wanted him on your side. It seems like a good thing. So I'm just wondering if you would all like to do something of that. You were so extremely vital that this is not a very time-sensitive question. But how would you like to be remembered is the question. I wouldn't have asked that, but your biographer did. But do you want to add to that? It certainly is true you want him on your side. There's one thing that you might want to speak of, because when someone that you like and admire needs to be defended, you were all over that. You were really active in that cause. So let's actually start with Lynne and do the, just go down the row of how you would like to be remembered.
I'm so young, I haven't been thinking about it.
She's the youngest one, we're all waiting.
But I guess this, in my heart, when Pete and I were first married, what are we going to do with our lives? So idealistic, so excited about going into the world as a couple. We decided that we wanted to tell the story of the pioneer spirit. We wanted to be teachers and teach what was special about the pioneer spirit of sacrifice and toughness and honesty, all those idealistic things. And I just have to say, as someone who went to New York City as an actor, and that I love being from the West. I love being a Wyoming girl. I love being thought of as somebody who drives 400 miles to see a football game. I just love being from the West. So maybe that's what they'll say about me. I love being from the West with Pete, as long as Pete was right there.
And how would I like to be remembered? I guess as a loyal friend, a loving mother, and a loving wife, and believing very much in commitment. And we often are asked, as we have been married for 63 years, how have we stayed married And we said, we decided to.
Well, you led me to a story. There was a Methodist minister and a Catholic priest and a rabbi who were asked that very question. What would you like to have people say when they're looking into your casket to see you as you're a dead person? What would you like them to say? How about you? And the Methodist minister said that I was a good parishioner, a good family man, a good father, and a good husband. Mr. Priest, what about you? He said that I was a man of God, that I took the Lord's name and never took it in vain, that I was a fine and upstanding representative of my faith. Rabbi, what would you like people to say when they were looking into your casket? And he said, well, I'll tell you, I'd like to have somebody say, look, I think he moved. I would like to have on my stone what Lou Gehrig said in the stadium, Yankee Stadium. I'm the luckiest guy on the face of the earth. I have a wife who I love dearly, a brother who I love dearly, a sister-in-law who's stuck with him all this time. I'm the lucky, and great parents and great kids. One of them right here in this room. Yeah, I'm the luckiest guy on the face of this planet.
There's really nothing really to add to that, except that what I said before. That just, you know, what would you like on the stone? You would have wanted him on your side. And next to that would be an L for the word loyalty, because that's the toughest thing you're ever going to face in life. You got a friend, you love them, suddenly they have gone into the tank. What do? Abandon them? Or do you stay loyal? Do you call them and say, I've never been more embarrassed in my life to see what you did? Or do you call and say, you know, I knew you'd taken a real shoot in the chops, and then you stay loyal? That's very painful sometimes. But that's the toughest thing in life, is to see a friend go down in flames, and everybody's abandoned them. Everybody. Do you abandon them too for political correctness purposes? No. Or do you just call them and say, you know, sorry, love you, hope you get out of that. But you know, it's somebody said, have you lived here all your life? And I said, not yet. I took care of it. So far, we're here. You're going to be surprised that just old coots.
You're going to be surprised at this, Patty.
I know.
This comes from no interview at all.
No, we haven't even rehearsed. It's very short.
Okay. Very short.
I always do the soprano.
Yes, this is a Christmas gift.
Christmas gift to you, Patty.
Sleigh bells ring, are you listening? In the lane, snow is glistening. A beautiful sight, we're happy tonight. We're walking in the winter wonderland. Gone away is the new bird. Here to stay is the new bird. He sings a love song as we go along, walking in the winter wonderland. In the meadow we can build a snowman and pretend that he's Parson Brown. We'll say, are you married? We'll say, no, man, but you can do the job when you're in town. Later on we'll conspire as we dream by the fire to face unafraid the plans that we made, walking in the winter wonderland.
ceremonial part. My voice is not quite where it was until we heard the music there, but thank you. Then I think what we are going to do, we have to do 2 rituals. The first one we will do quick. So where should we be for photos or? So we should all, but then, so the center-related people should come stand sort of on the flanks here for photos. So center board members, students, faculty, visiting fellows, if you would come stand on either side here. And we will begin with the presentation of the pickle. And the pickle is the tribute. Should we have people sit in front here?
Where do you want us?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So this is the 4th occasion that we have, or 5th occasion, I guess the 4th, that we have presented the humor, Setting Recognized Humor Initiative pickle. And it is the fool for the day, and it is a compliment. And so we would like to, you don't get to keep it, but you get to see that your names are on the pickle jar. So you will, what I think, oh, good, our board members here. So we're going to now pass this down, and you may all hold it affectionately and be very delighted that your name is on there. So you can just look at that. Then, a little bit more meaningfully, but that's very meaningful. And I am the official fool, and I'm just honored to have you on that team with me. Now I'm going to read the Stegner Award citation. And this will, when you next encounter this, it will be done in beautiful calligraphy. And it will be framed, and you may treat it as you will there. But I think you will. Who knows what you want to do? Who knows? But okay. So now I shall now read the Stegner Award citations. A sense of humor. Lorna and Milward Simpson taught Alan K. Simpson and Peter K. Simpson is the irreplaceable solvent for the abrasive elements of life. The elder Simpsons thereby set a regional, national, and world record for success in persuading the next generation to accept top-notch advice and to steer by it throughout their lives. Powerfully reinforced by the recruitment of Anne Schroll Simpson and Lynne Livingston Simpson to the cause, the Simpson family has forged and led a lasting Western coalition of the good-hearted, the forthright, and the forgiving, devising a unique merging of merriment with an unflinching recognition of human imperfection. The Simpsons have navigated in a manner for which the adjectives original and innovative would be understatements, the complicated terrain of a region abundantly supplied with the abrasive elements of life. Individually and collectively, the unleashing of their exuberance and generosity and expanding the reach of their loyalty to and affection for kinfolk has set an irresistible example of the power of friendship to scramble the divisions of self-interest and partisanship. While one member of the family may have taken a career route that led to greater visibility and audibility, there is no question that the status and stature of Senator Alan K. Simpson arise from and rest on the firmest foundation of family and friendship. In the Simpsonian West, the whole is emphatically greater than the sum of the parts, even as the individual participants in that whole continue to serve their fellow Westerners as high-impact delivery systems for charm, energy, and faith.
Oh, how beautiful.
Oh, that's so good.
And if you think that's an easy literary genre, it's working. And when you got 4 spectacular people to get into it, but I hope that well, thank you. Thank you. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this occasion. And if I'm hard to predict, but I think you'll remember it the rest of your lives, really, to have heard these folks. So, thank you.